He vanished from the US with his Japanese mistress, right when I was holding our son in my arms, waiting for the doctor to tell me his heartbeat could stop at any moment. 3 weeks later, he came back. Empty-handed. Mumbling apologies. Couldn't even look me in the eye. What do you think I did when I saw him standing at my doorstep? Want to know what really happened? Stay with me till the end. There's a twist you won't see coming. I was sitting in the hallway on the 3rd floor of the pediatric cardiology clinic, next to a broken snack machine, when my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I'm gone. Tokyo. With Noriko. Don't try to find me. I didn't blink, just stared at the words on the screen. Like they were mocking me. Like they were part of a script I once wrote, except this time, I wasn't the one writing it. I nearly dropped the phone, my vision blurred, not from tears, but because all the blood had drained from my face. A nurse walked by, glanced at me, and gave a polite nod. The doctor's reviewing the results. Might call you in about 5 minutes. I nodded back, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd throw up everything. The panic rising in my throat, the disbelief, the nausea. Mark. My husband. The man who kissed me in the delivery room and promised I'd never have to go through anything alone. Just vanished from the country with his assistant. The Japanese one, he said, was amazing at Excel. Noriko. I gripped the phone tightly in my hand. The screen went dark. Everything around me kept moving, crying children, names being called, rubber soles sliding across the floor. But I stayed still, like I'd been nailed to that hard plastic chair. Mommy? My son's voice came from behind the exam room door. Weak, he peeked out, hair messy, skin pale from blood loss. I want to go home. I stood up, fast, like a machine, walked into the exam room with a crooked smile stretched across my face. Where's your husband? The doctor asked, eyes still fixed on the echocardiogram. I swallowed. He's stuck in a meeting. The only harmless lie I still had control over. I'm Jenna, 35, a TV screenwriter. I used to think I could always tell when someone was reciting lines instead of speaking from the heart. But turns out when the one reading is the person you love, you go blind. Mark was the kind of guy whose words were so sweet, even a dentist would warn you. He once stood on a balcony in the snow, reading me his favorite line I'd ever written. If there comes a day you can't breathe, I'll breathe for you. He once held my hand through nights of our son's high fevers. He once sketched out the future of our family on a napkin at the kitchen table. I didn't see, or maybe I chose not to see, that every word he said was calculated, like a marketing campaign, like part of a carefully planned escape. I signed the hospital fee advance with my personal credit card. Remaining limit? $87. The billing clerk looked at me like she wanted to ask, "Are you sure?" I just nodded. As the nurse adjusted my son's hospital gown, she said, "Your husband didn't come? I remember last week he even brought cupcakes for the kids." I froze. Not because of the cupcakes, but because of how casually she said it, like a father vanishing into Tokyo was something everyone saw coming. Everyone but me. I carried my son to the car. It wasn't raining, but the cold wind stunned my skin. He leaned into my shoulder and asked, "Where did Dad go, Mom?" I didn't answer, just held his little hand tighter. When we got home, I kicked off my shoes at the door. I didn't have the strength to take another step. My son lay on the couch, turning on his cracked tablet. He replayed an old video. Us, in the kitchen, laughing and playing. Mark was behind the camera, laughing loudly. His voice echoed through the worn-out speaker. "That's my smart boy, give Daddy a high five." I wanted to smash the tablet on the floor, but my son was smiling, and I couldn't take that memory away from him too. I walked into the kitchen, opened my laptop, and logged into the bank account. My eyes locked on the number in the top right corner. $27.40. I don't know how long I sat there. All I know is, by the time I looked up, it was dark outside, and my hands were still shaking. Mark didn't just leave. He drained the account, cut off my secondary card, deleted the banking app from my phone. He flew to Tokyo, with Noriko. And me? I stayed, in a part of America colder than winter itself, with a heartsick child, a house on the brink of losing power, and $27 left to my name. I got up, walked to the bed, and lay next to my son. His head rested on my arm. His hair still smelled like baby shampoo. I closed my eyes. Didn't cry. My son slept heavily the entire morning, only stirring when the nurse came to change his IV bag. I sat beside him, eyes fixed on his face, but my mind kept drifting back to the night before, to those cold, unfeeling numbers on the screen. $27. And a message that vanished like poison in the wind. I couldn't cry anymore. Crying takes energy, and I had none left. I just sat there, numb, like my battery was dead. But in my head, memories started to flicker back. Like my brain had hit replay on an old episode I once skipped over. Mark came home late 3 nights in a row, saying there was a last-minute campaign for a Japanese client. I believed him. I even brought him fresh shirts to the office. Noriko, the assistant, took the shirt from me, bowed deeply, and smiled. That smile was thin as a razor blade. "Mark's in a meeting, I'll make sure he gets it." I used to think she was just being polite. Now I realize that bow wasn't out of respect. It was a farewell. There was a time Mark stopped sleeping in our bed. He blamed it on back pain. Started spending more time in his office, door locked, headphones on. I once asked what he was listening to. He just smiled. Finance podcasts. And I believed him, because I was stupid. Or maybe because I didn't want to know the truth. The next morning, while my son was still sound asleep, I went into the laundry room to find his scarf. In the pile of unwashed clothes was a pair of Mark's jeans. I reached into the pocket, not expecting anything, just making sure nothing got left behind. My fingers touched a folded piece of paper. I opened it. A receipt. For an international wire transfer. $22,000. Recipient, a name I didn't recognize. Address, Tokyo. Transfer date, 4 days ago. I stared at the slip like it might catch fire in my hands. Mark didn't just leave, he planned it. I slipped the receipt into my jacket pocket and walked out to the living room. My son was still asleep. A silent cartoon played on the TV. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Carol, PI. An old friend, now a private investigator in Brooklyn. I didn't need much, just to know whether I was losing my mind or if Mark was really a con artist. Carol picked up after 2 rings. "I'm listening." I sent her a photo of the receipt. She said, "Let me dig, give me 48 hours. She called back in less than 12. Mark changed his mailing address at work 3 months ago, registered a private mailbox. Around the same time, he started withdrawing small amounts from the joint account, regularly. The listed reason? Domestic travel expenses. No one flagged it. But the total adds up. I didn't say a word. Carol continued. He also applied for a long-term visa to Japan, listed under creative tech consultant. Sounds impressive, and completely fake. I thanked her, hung up, then sat there frozen on the couch for an entire hour, staring at the wall clock. Every tick felt like a punch to the chest. My phone rang. Mark's mom. I almost didn't answer, but I hit the green button anyway. Maybe part of me just needed to hear someone say something. Big mistake. "Jenna, what's going on? Mark says you're not letting him see his son." I gripped the phone tighter. "He's in Tokyo, with his mistress. He left. He abandoned his own son's medication. There must be a reason. Men don't just leave unless something drives them to it." "Are you even listening to me?" My voice was sharp. "My son is in the hospital. Mark hasn't called once. Not a single message. Not a single dollar left behind." She went silent for a few seconds. Then, cold as ever. "If a woman knows how to keep her husband, he doesn't leave." I hung up. No screaming, no swearing, no throwing things. I just got up, walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. Not from crying, from rage, from exhaustion, from helplessness, from being blamed in place of the one who betrayed me. I stared into the mirror like I was facing a witness. "No one's coming to save you, Jenna. You swim or you drown." I walked out of the bathroom and headed to my desk. From the bottom drawer, I pulled out an old folder. The one Mark used to sign his very first contract. I flipped to the first page and stapled the wire transfer receipt to it. Then I printed a copy of my son's medical records. Piece by piece, it all started to click into place. I picked up a pen. No shaking, no hesitation. I wasn't a screenwriter anymore. I was writing the case file to expose a traitor. 3 weeks later, on a damp afternoon with no rain, the doorbell rang. Right as I was rocking my son to sleep after another fever spell. I thought it was the gas company, but it wasn't. When I opened the door, Mark was standing there, hair a mess, face pale, dragging an empty suitcase that wouldn't roll on the concrete. The wheels jammed with mud. He looked at me like he expected a hug. "Jenna." I said nothing, stood firmly in the doorway, close enough to see the red beneath his eyes, far enough not to smell the stench on his shirt. Noriko left me, he began, voice slightly trembling. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't move. I miss our son. Those 3 words dropped like pebbles into a dry well. He's sleeping, I said flatly. You've made him cry enough. Mark swallowed hard. His lips were dry. He wasn't used to being turned away. Jenna, can you just let me talk? Just a few minutes. I shifted my body slightly. Didn't invite him in. Didn't block him either. Just left a gap. Exactly the width of his shoulders. Mark stepped inside like a wet dog finding its old kennel. I closed the door behind him, locked it, carefully. Not out of fear, but to make sure the evidence stayed inside. I pointed at the couch. Sit. He sat down, shoulders hunched, hands clasped. Not the posture of a man full of remorse. More like someone who had just lost control. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out my phone, hit record, and slipped it into my coat pocket. When I came back, Mark was glancing around the room. Like he was checking if I'd changed the locks. Like he was waiting to see if I'd break down. Noriko said I'm selfish, he started. She said I carried too much emotional baggage. I thought your suitcase was empty. Mark blinked. The rhythm broke. He let out a weak laugh. I meant, in my head. Sure. I sat across from him, arms folded, said nothing more. Let the silence sit heavy. Let him fill the space. Let me hear how many acts were in the little drama he'd rehearsed. Jenna, I never meant to abandon our son. I needed time to think. You know how it is. Work pressure, pressure from my mom. And the pressure made you wire money out of our family account? Mark swallowed hard. I know I messed up, but I didn't know Noriko would be like that. She asked for money. She burned through everything I brought. I have nothing left. Right? Now I've got nothing too. The silence stretched. I could hear the ticking of the kitchen clock. Mark looked at me, his voice starting to shake. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just, please let me stay a few days. Just to see our son. I tilted my head. Your son has a weak heart, but a sharp memory. He remembers who left him waiting all day in the hospital. Mark bowed his head, his hands clenched tighter together. Remember when he learned to say daddy? We filmed him all night. That's the one part of me that still feels bright. And the rest of you's gone pitch black, huh? I said it without blinking. He laughed, like he hoped I was joking. But my eyes told him otherwise. I wasn't joking. Not last week. Not since the last time he sent a one-sided message and vanished off the map. I'm sorry, he whispered. I stood up, grabbed a pillow from the side chair, tossed it onto the couch. Sleep here? There's no room in this house for 2 people in that bed anymore. He didn't protest, just nodded. Still that stray dog, grateful to be allowed on the edge of the rug. I walked back to my room, closed the door behind me, pulled the phone from my pocket, saved the recording, emailed it to my lawyer. Not to blow anything up, but to use when the time was right. I wasn't writing scripts anymore. I was writing a case, and this time, he didn't get to choose the lines. Mark slept through the entire next morning, like all the chaos he caused had drained the life out of him. I let him. No shaking, no questions. Just quietly dressed my son and took him to his routine heart checkup. On the way home, a message popped up from my lawyer. Can you come at 3? Bring everything you've got. Her office was in an old building by the river, quiet, discreet. Her name was Lorraine, around 50. Thin frame, short hair, voice heavy like stone. She didn't offer a handshake, just gestured for me to sit and hand over the file. I hear you're ready for a fight, she said, flipping to the first page before even looking me in the eye. I don't need to win, I replied. I need to protect my son. She nodded. Her eyes were steel. No gloss, no blink. I lost my 3-year-old daughter because of a bad ruling, Lorraine said, her voice like gravel. My ex-husband used to hit me. The court called it a personal conflict. I lost custody. A year later, he killed her, then himself. I swallowed hard. She looked at me, this time, deeply. I won't let another mother sit here filing motions alone. I opened my bag, laid everything on the table, the audio of Mark admitting he left, the wire transfer receipt. The doctor's letter confirming my son's condition. Medical reports. Photos of Mark and Noriko that Carol had pulled from her locked social media account. Lorraine gave a half smile. You're not just any screenwriter, are you? I used to write about men who kill their wives, I said. Now I'm living in the rewrite. She closed the folder. I'm filing an emergency motion this afternoon. We're going for temporary custody, limited contact, and a freeze on all joint assets until the court date. I don't want the money, I said. I just want him far from my son. Trust me, she said. We're getting both. That afternoon, the court reviewed our emergency motion. A short hearing, just my lawyer, Mark's court-appointed attorney, and a female judge whose eyes were as unreadable as mirrored sunglasses. Mark was called in last. He wore a wrinkled dress shirt, his hair uncombed. Still tried to hold the posture of a confident man, even with the dark circles under his eyes and cracked lips. Lorraine led with facts no one could deny. Mark left the country without notice, transferred all family funds to a private account, abandoned his son during critical heart treatment, and confessed everything in a recorded audio. The opposing lawyer fumbled. Mark slammed the table and stood up. She's making this up. I'm the biological father. I have rights. Lorraine didn't even blink. Biological fathers don't leave their sick child for a mistress. They don't drain the medical account, and they don't beg their ex-wife to let them sleep on her couch like a stray dog. Mark turned to me, his eyes wild, like an animal caught in a closing trap. Jenna, what are you doing? You know I didn't mean... I know, I said, voice steady. You didn't mean to fall for Noriko. You didn't mean to fly to Tokyo. You didn't mean to empty our account. You didn't mean to leave our son crying alone in a hospital. None of it was... intentional. The judge struck her gavel. The court grants the request for temporary protection. Miss Jenna is awarded custody. Mr. Mark is prohibited from contact, except under supervised visitation. A formal hearing will be scheduled. Mark collapsed into his chair, like he'd been struck by a real hammer. I stood, picked up my bag, and walked out. Never looked back. That night, I held my son as he slept. The house was still silent, just like always, but for the first time, it didn't feel like the walls were about to collapse on top of me. Light from the window stretched across the table, right where I'd left the folder. 3 bold words stamped across the cover: custody battle. I didn't know what the next chapter would look like, but I knew one thing for certain. This time, I was the one holding the pen. No one else would write it for me. The final hearing was set on a gray morning. I wore a black coat, hair tied back, no makeup. Lorraine told me to come as I was, a mother, not a performance. Mark showed up 12 minutes late, still disheveled, but this time there was no pretending. His lawyer stood beside him, whispering into his ear like someone bailing water from a sinking ship. He asked to speak. The judge gave a small nod. I've been struggling with depression for the past 2 years, Mark said, his voice low. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't realize I was hurting my son. I had no one to talk to. I've been self-destructing. Lorraine stood before he could finish his act. Permission to present evidence. She opened her laptop and played the recording, the one from the night Mark showed up at my door. In the audio, his voice rang out, clear, firm, not the least bit fragile. The kid just needs a few heart meds. It's not like he has cancer. You blow everything out of proportion just to make me the bad guy. The courtroom fell silent. So still you could hear someone breathing in the back row. Mark said nothing. His head hung low, his face drained of color. Next came my mother-in-law's testimony. She was dressed impeccably, hair dyed chestnut brown, perfume heavy in the air. My son's not perfect, she said. But he's a good father. Jenna's been too harsh. He just needs a chance. Lorraine said nothing. She simply handed the judge a printed color document. This is a bank statement showing a wire transfer from your personal account to Noriko, dated 3 days before Mark left the U.S. The listed reason: relocation support in Tokyo. May I ask, is this your signature? The woman faltered. I was just trying to help him have a safe place to stay. I didn't know it would come to this. You knew, Lorraine said, her voice ice cold, and you made your choice. The judge nodded. No further words needed. This court finds the abandonment of a child during medical treatment, financial manipulation, and deliberate misrepresentation under oath to be serious offenses. Miss Jenna is granted full legal and physical custody. Mr. Mark is prohibited from unsupervised contact and barred from international travel until full reimbursement of medical expenses is completed. All assets in Mr. Mark's name are hereby frozen pending a tax investigation. Mark didn't protest. He just sat there, silent, eyes blank like someone waking from a filthy dream. I stood, didn't look back. Lorraine gently touched my shoulder, a silent signal that it was over. We stepped outside. The sunlight broke through the clouds, quiet but unmistakably clear. 2 weeks later, the local media ran a short headline: Creative Director of Major NYC Ad Firm under investigation for tax evasion and family financial abuse. No name was mentioned, but anyone who knew, knew. I got a letter from the hospital. The medical bills had been paid, from Mark's frozen account. One afternoon, I was folding blankets when my son tugged me into the living room. "Mom, look." On the table was a crayon drawing, scribbled with shaky lines and too much heart. 2 figures stood side by side holding hands. One had long hair, one short. "It's you and me," he said, face glowing with pride like he'd just built a whole universe. I knelt down and wrapped my arms around him. My heart didn't ache anymore. It still felt heavy, but it was warm. I smiled, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like anything was missing. Some people don't leave so they can come back. They leave so you can finally see who they really are. Some things break not to be repaired, but to open the door to a life more worth living. I used to believe family was something you had to hold on to at all costs. Now I know, some relationships are meant to be kept only as memories, and even memories deserve to be edited. Protecting your child doesn't mean carrying the weight of the world alone. But it also means never handing that weight over to the wrong hands again. Have you ever been in my shoes? Have you had someone disappear on you the moment you needed them most? What did you do to rise again? Share your story in the comments and support us by subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.